Good evening, everyone. So we are coming up on the very end of this book that I've been reading. Let's see how much we have left in it. There's, I think, literally only about 2 chapters left in it, so we may finish it tonight. I hope you all have enjoyed this book as much as I have. If you really enjoyed hearing me read it to you, I really do hope that you'll go and check it out and maybe purchase it off of Amazon like I did to read the whole thing for yourself. I just have really enjoyed this book a lot. By the way, in case anyone was wondering, the reason I always look so shiny at night when I'm getting into bed, it's because of the skin treatment that I put on. I was just watching some of my videos on YouTube the other day and noticed that all the ones where I'm filming right before bed or filming at night, I look so shiny in the reflection, but it's all worth it. I mean, you know, people still think I'm 19 or 20, so I'll take the bullet of looking a little shiny at night if it keeps my skin all youthful. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back into our book. Okay. Natural childbirth has nothing to do with feminism. Mariah Sixkiller claims she is a birth feminist. Birth feminists simply believe in a woman's right to make empowered choices about her birth experience. We believe a mom should have evidence-based information about all her birth options, which all too often does not happen. We believe a mom should be supported through her decision-making process and into the birth experience itself, which all too often does not happen. And we believe every mom is entitled to her own choice, without judgment, whatever it may be, which all too often does not happen. But I'm an actual feminist. That's how I know that natural childbirth has nothing to do with feminism. Natural childbirth advocates don't believe in evidence. They misuse the term to promote a predetermined agenda. And they don't refrain from judging those who make anything other than pre-approved, officially sanctioned choices. Sixkiller writes about her vaginal birth after cesarean. When the time came, in February 2012, I labored for 4 days with no medicine. I have never worked harder or experienced a more unbelievable thrill than meeting my son that day. I felt relief, pride, strength, and elation. I felt empowered by the birth, and it changed my life for the better. My postpartum experience was amazingly positive, a sharp contrast with my first postpartum experience. And to this day, I look at my middle child with wonder and appreciation for the experience we have together, the time I gave him his life, and he gave me mine back. I'm a feminist, and what Sixkiller describes is not feminism. It's narcissism. The technology of the 20th century, hospital births, epidurals, infant formula, and especially the pill, freed women from being slaves to their biology. I'm a feminist, and I can tell you opposition to women's emancipation is not and can never be feminist. I'm a feminist. That's why I spent years becoming an OBGYN, so I could understand every aspect of childbirth and provide women with safe, satisfying births. I'm a feminist. That's why I object to the insistence of natural childbirth advocates reducing birth to only the ways that a mother uses her vagina, uterus, and breasts. I'm a feminist. That's why I support the use of pain relief for the excruciating pain of childbirth. I'm a feminist. That's why I encourage women to get their medical information from medical experts, not from celebrities, cult members, and self-proclaimed experts. I'm a feminist. That's why I recognize that how you give birth to your child, or even if you give birth to your child, has nothing to do with your love for that child. I'm a proud, committed, enthusiastic feminist. That's why I recognize that natural childbirth has nothing to do with feminism, and everything to do with manipulating women into accepting the profoundly misogynistic notion that women's worth is determined by their vaginas, uteruses, and breasts, instead of their intellect or the content of their character. Love your body and your birth. There are countless women who hate their bodies. Why? Because those bodies don't meet the contemporary culturally constructed ideal of feminine beauty. Don't believe that the ideal female body is culturally constructed? Consider the Venus figure, prehistoric carved art depicting women and goddesses. As the famous Venus of Willendorf demonstrates, for most of human history, the ideal female figure looked very different from today's ideal. The prehistoric figurines have pendulous breasts, very wide hips, and large bellies. The contemporary ideal of female beauty is dramatically different. Regular features, low BMI, large breasts, thin waist. This cultural construct is everywhere you look. It's in movies and on TV, in fashion magazines, and in advertisements of products of all kinds. The message has been received loud and clear. There is a right way to look and a wrong way to look. Those who don't meet the cultural construct should work assiduously, diet obsessively, exercise constantly, submit themselves to plastic surgery, squeeze themselves into shapewear, and otherwise torture their errant bodies into the desirable ideal. And those who can't or don't submit to the ideal should hate the way they look and hate themselves for lack of willpower. Childbirth is much the same. The natural childbirth community has created and enforced an ideal birth that bears as much resemblance to childbirth in nature as Gisele Bündchen bears to the Venus of Willendorf. The contemporary ideal of birth is an unmedicated vaginal delivery without interventions of any kind. Women don't experience pain or have contractions. They have waves and surges instead. Women don't scream. They vocalize. They don't fear birth. Fearing birth is a sign of weakness and lack of ideological fervor. They don't have complications. Everything is a variation of normal. They don't die, and their babies don't die unless they are meant to die, in which case embracing technology could not have saved them. The message has been received loud and clear. There is a right way to give birth and a wrong way. Women should stoically bear excruciating pain or even pretend that the pain is orgasmic. They should risk their lives and their babies' lives to meet the ideal. Those who can't or won't submit to the ideal should hate the way they gave birth and hate themselves for lack of dedication and ideological fervor. They should embark upon another pregnancy in order to have a healing birth that they can brag about on blogs and message boards. When it comes to body image, most of us finally come to understand that the culturally constructed ideal is corrosive to women's view of themselves. It leads to shame, anger, and self-loathing. Women come in all shapes and sizes. The ideal was imposed externally and serves to oppress women while simultaneously enriching the fashion, diet, and plastic surgery industries. Hopefully, we encourage our daughters and ourselves to love our bodies regardless of whether they meet an externally imposed standard. We encourage, or should be encouraging, our daughters to subvert externally imposed standards by rejecting them. They and we should recognize that beauty comes from within and looks different on every woman. I'd like to suggest an equally subversive response to the natural childbirth industry, an industry that promotes and profits from a culturally constructed ideal of childbirth. This culturally constructed ideal of unmedicated vaginal birth is corrosive to women's view of themselves. It leads to shame, anger, and self-loathing. It serves only to oppress women while simultaneously enriching midwives, doulas, childbirth educators, and purveyors of everything from natural childbirth books to plastic birthing pools. We should be encouraging women to love their births, regardless of whether they meet an externally imposed standard. We should encourage women to subvert that externally imposed standard by choosing pain relief if they have pain and want relief, technological interventions to predict and treat complications, and cesarean sections to rescue babies and mothers if necessary. We should recognize that a beautiful birth comes in a million possible iterations, from births in which no interventions are needed to those which involve every bit of technology known to mankind. The beauty of birth resides in the arrival of a new life and the inauguration of the extraordinarily powerful mother-infant bond, which may take weeks or months to develop, but lasts a lifetime. It has nothing to do with how the baby was born. It has nothing to do with unmedicated vaginal birth. It has nothing to do with meeting a birthing ideal that allows women to stand on a false pedestal and look down upon her peers. You don't rock birth. You celebrate it, however it happens. It's time to reject both culturally imposed standards of beauty and culturally imposed standards of birth. Say no to the natural childbirth industry that wants you to feel bad about epidurals, shamed by C-sections, to loathe yourself for not having the ideal birth, and to redouble your efforts to have a healing birth next time. Be subversive. Love your body as it is. Be subversive. Love your birth as it is. Women do not have other ways of knowing. Visit any natural childbirth blog or message board, and it won't be long before you are told, trust your intuition, Mama. Why? This is yet another reason to ignore your doctor. But why would you ignore your obstetrician, the doctor who has been highly trained in normal and abnormal childbirth, whose primary concern is to keep you healthy while delivering a healthy baby, in favor of a midwife's recommendation that differs? And why would you ignore your child's pediatrician, who tells you your baby is losing weight, whose only goal is that your child be as healthy as possible, in favor of your lactation consultant's insistence that you must breastfeed exclusively, because even one bottle of formula will harm your baby? The natural parenting industry has a two-pronged approach to addressing the conundrum of ignoring the expert in favor of the allied professional with less education, training, and skill. The first prong is derogation of science itself. The second prong is elevation of intuition. There are many different iterations of feminism. Difference feminism is a strand that became popular in the 1980s and 1990s. It is predicated on the belief that while men and women are morally equal, they are not equivalent. While men purported value rationality and science, women value caring and intuition. According to this view, rationality is just one way to view the world, but there are other ways of knowing, preferred by women. The natural parenting industry has been deeply influenced by difference feminism. Rationalism, in the industry view, is the provenance of patriarchy and has unfairly become authoritative, not because it is correct, but because it is male. Women's intuition, in this view, is every bit as accurate as science. The natural parenting industry does not reject all science. To the extent that science supports their claims, they are willing to quote scientific papers as proof, but when it does not comport with their personal beliefs, feelings, and opinions, they reject it as inapplicable to women's bodies. Intuition, they claim, is actually a better way to predict outcomes for women and their children. Midwives and scientific evidence. Midwives were initially enthusiastic about basing clinical practice on scientific evidence. That's because they had long told each other that midwifery was science-based, while obstetrics was not. As midwives Jane Monroe and Helen Spivey explain in The Nature and Use of Evidence in Midwifery Care, at the beginning of the evidence-based practice movement, much of the midwifery profession responded enthusiastically to the potential for change. Evidence-based practice was seen to be offering a powerful tool to question and examine obstetric-led models of care that had dominated the previous decades. But of course, modern obstetrics had always been based on scientific evidence. It was midwifery that ignored the scientific evidence in favor of ideology. Almost all practices exclusive to midwifery, as opposed to copied from obstetrics, included the veneration of unmedicated vaginal birth and water birth, were not evaluated scientifically before being introduced into clinical practice. No one bothered to check before making them dogma because they were based on approved ideology. It has been quite a shock to midwives, doulas, and childbirth educators to learn that most of their own practices have never been scientifically scientifically validated. Even worse, from the point of view of ideology, their critique of modern obstetrics flies in the face of the existing scientific evidence. Therefore, as Monroe and Spivey explain, some midwives have not been so enthusiastic about evidence-based practice, viewing the drive to create and implement evidence as a threat to their clinical freedom. As a first approach, midwives and childbirth educators have rejected the definition of evidence. As defined by David Sackett, the founder of evidence-based practice, it is the conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of current best evidence in making decisions about the care of individual patients. That sounds objective, and evidently objectivity is a problem. Midwives have attempted to solve that problem by insisting that evidence can be defined only in context. Context, in this case, really means ideology. Further reading reveals that evidence is valuable only if everyone in the group agrees, and in this case, the group must include midwives, doulas, and childbirth educators, whether those opinions are based on science or not. Indeed, the scientific facts are merely one aspect of evidence. That explains the existence of otherwise inexplicable midwifery publishing, like Sarah Wickham's Evidence-Informed Midwifery. There are as many different forms of evidence as our understanding of midwifery and women will allow us to see. There is also an important distinction between the words based and informed. The latter is preferred by those who realize that midwifery is a process which is about far more than evidence. What constitutes evidence for Wickham? A hodgepodge of beliefs and experiences, including intuition, a woman's personal experience, her midwife's personal experience, body knowledge, insight, and philosophy, among others. Or to put it another way, when the evidence does not support midwives' claims, they can easily wrap their ideas in muddy words such as body knowledge and insight to convince others they are informed. The bottom line is, many midwives, doulas, and childbirth educators use the term scientific evidence merely as a rhetorical device and in the same way that creationism and other forms of pseudoscience use it, while simultaneously insisting that their intuition matters more. I think we'll stop there for tonight because I'm getting a little tired and I have a couple classes tomorrow, but I hope you all enjoyed that reading. We're almost to the end of this book. I really enjoy reading it along with everyone, and please go and check it out on Amazon if you've enjoyed it. It's Pushback by Dr. Amy Tutor. Alright, good night everyone.